Planning Commission of India, Chairman National Council for Teacher Education, Professor and Head DEME NCRT, Joint Director Staff Selection Commission, Government of India. A US Fulbright scholar, Professor Prakash has been a visiting faculty at University of Windsor, Canada, a guest faculty in HIIT, Harvard University, and consultant to the World Bank. He has the distinction of being an interlocutor under prestigious US International Visitors Leadership Program. He has the honor of serving as a member of the jury for a notable UNESCO Wendy Award for Educational Innovation for 10 long years. He represented India in numerous bilateral and multilateral forums in about 30 foreign countries. He has published extensively on a wide spectrum of areas concerning school education, higher education, and educational planning and administration. He has been conferred many coveted awards, honors for his contribution in the field of education. Ladies and gentlemen, Prof.Ved Prakash, former chairman of UGC, and the title of his lecture is Global Trends in Higher Education and Integration of Technology. Sir, over to you, please.
Esteemed Vice Chancellor, Professor Vishpreet Ghosh, my dear colleague and friend Professor Basav Chaudhary, former Vice Chancellor of West Bengal State University, distinguished members of the faculty from the university, ladies and gentlemen. When I left the hotel, people asked me to be in during the inaugural session, and as corrected, I thought that I will be very brief. But now what she has done is that she has steered Professor Ghosh actually. Together they have decided to make me having put milk and the butter milk together in the same glass. So I will try to do that. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you that somehow I get highly inspired by the land of the West Bengal, and there are reasons for that. The simplest reason which can come to your mind is that if we have received 6 Nobel Prizes, there's only one Nobel Prize, which has the boundaries of the West Bengal. Don't you think that this is not a mean achievement? The second fact that I would like to share with you is that the higher education, the modern Indian higher education, was born in the city of Calcutta. Many people are not aware of it. In 1786, when Dr. Rajaram Mohan Roy approached then Governor General Warren Hastings and asked him to articulate a policy on education and set up educational institutions, the Governor General did not pay any heed to his request. Dr. Rajaram Mohan Roy waited for 36 long years, and then when he realized that these guys are not going to do any good to our children, he mobilized some of his friends and set up the foundation of the great institution in 1817, which is known as the Hindu College, became a Presidency College, and now Presidency University. Not only that, many people have made their name and left the legacy because of the very ambience of this city actually. C.V. Raman, he was a Tamil, and he became Professor C.V. Raman in the city of Calcutta. With the goodwill and support of Mahendra Sarkar. Professor Radhakrishnan became a known philosopher only from the city of Calcutta. This land has such a characteristic that when you walk through the streets of Calcutta, I get usually inspired when I see that people are bathing alongside the street. Some people consider it otherwise, but I think I look at it from another perspective, that the divine force has sent this person on this land. He has a right to live, and that right is granted by none other than the people of the city of Calcutta. People from different parts of the country have come, settled, and prospered in this city. That is the beauty of this land. The people of the country got inspired by the work of Dr. Rajaram Mohan Roy, and then they started setting up educational institutions in other parts of the country. Like they came up with Pune College, with Madras Christian College, with Elphinstone College, with Hooghly College at a later date. Because the foundation was laid by Dr. Rajaram Mohan Roy and his friends. And those institutions were making such significant contributions that though they were not in a position of awarding degrees at that point in time, they were awarding only the completion certificate and finishing certificate. But those certificates were good enough to go to Oxford, Cambridge, and Harvard. That was the quality of education which was delivered from the campuses of these great institutions. Now, the question arises that what have we done? If you look at the education, which has continued to evolve and extended its reach since the dawn of human history. And I will take you back to the pre-Socrates era of Heraclitus, when he said, and I quote, "You can't step twice in the same stream," unquote. We have thoroughly messed up the concept of education in this world, not only in India. If you look at that statement of Heraclitus, which has been expressed by very many people using different semantics, there is a science involved in that. There is a logic involved in that. There is a geography involved in that. There is an art involved in it. It all depends upon the observer, how the observer looks at the statement made by Heraclitus. And we have segmented that education. And after so many centuries, we have realized that we have made a mistake by embracing the structured disciplines like geography, history, geology, botany, and chemistry. And then we started talking about dissolving the boundaries between the disciplines after the of knowledge. They require assimilation of knowledge from different domains. They require a nuanced perspective, and that nuanced perspective can be attained by the students or by the scholars only when they start connecting, assimilating, and joining the dots from different areas of study. There we have reached. The significance of education has been a matter of great concern actually, right from our freedom struggle time. And if you look at the freedom struggle movement, you would find that education, equality, and social justice were the main subjects of discourse during our freedom struggle. And after that, after independence, these subjects seem to have, I'm choosing my words very carefully, they seem to have not received the desirable attention, and as a result of which we continue to live in a highly stratified society, which is neither good from the economic perspective nor from the political perspective. And we continue to live in this stratified society for a very long time actually. The first stratification of society was foreseen by Kothari Commission in 1966. And the Commission in its report had categorically mentioned that, so you are leaving? Okay. We'll miss you. It's fine. Fine. The commission in its report has mentioned education as a process for social transformation to bridging up the gap between the masses and the classes. And in the context of nation building, the commission has said that education must be used as a process for building a shared citizenship based on social, democratic, secular, and egalitarian principles. On the other hand, we have to look what is happening at the global level, and we have to compete at the global level. We can't turn a blind eye about the developments that are taking place on the campuses of the most leading institutions of higher education, because higher education cannot be seen in isolation. We cannot see something which has been given away long time ago by the leading institutions. And let me tell you one thing. I'm told by one of the senior professors from Allahabad University that for a very long time, Allahabad University, which was known as the Oxford of the East, they were teaching this curriculum of Oxford for a very long time. They were not wasting their time and resources on developing the curriculum and designing the syllabus. They said that someone has done this exercise, why should we reinvent the wheel? And if they are different people, they are the leaders in this area, I think we should also be doing the same thing, and which is why Allahabad was known as the Oxford of the East actually. So one message that I would like to leave with you is, there is no point in reinventing the wheel. And there is nothing wrong in embracing those significant developments which are already taking place in the western part of the world. It's not a question of copying somebody. It's a question of looking at the advanced stage of every domain of knowledge and seeing how can we integrate it in our social and physical conditions. That is the biggest challenge for you. This is one takeaway that I would like to give to you. The other thing is that in the national education policy we have set certain, many I would be reflecting on each one of them one by one. For instance, we have set a goal for ourselves that we are going to increase the gross enrollment ratio in higher education to 50% by 2035. This is a very doable proposition. There is nothing wrong about it. We can certainly achieve the gross enrollment ratio of 50% by 2035, provided we do certain things. But before that, let me tell you, doing that, what we need to do is we need to fulfill academic obligations, meaning thereby that creating the content which can be used for online delivery. This means that every learner who is enrolled in the online mode of teaching and learning must have access to the smart devices, and that must be the responsibility of the institution which is enrolling that student. And the third thing is the technical obligation that the universities will have to create necessary wherewithal to deliver online degree programs. The third strategy would be, we have pockets in our country wherein the number of higher educational institutions per 100,000 population is as high as 52 and 47. But we also have pockets in this country wherein the number of institutional density is less than 7 and less than 5 and less than 3. Within this state, you go to Kuch Bihar, you go to Birpur, you go to Bankura. In a provincial level, that we need to identify such pockets and set up newer educational institutions in areas wherein the institutional density is less than the state average, like Professor Ghosh was telling, that in order to uplifting the children coming from the marginalized sections of the society, underprivileged sections of the society, we thought that we will establish the Neotia University in this part. So if we use these multi-pronged strategies, I think we can certainly realize the goal of attaining 50% growth enrollment ratio in higher education. It requires concerted efforts by the federal government. Professor Madhumita Roy was telling that our number is increasing in our tribe, which is a very good thing actually. At the global level, the participation rates of women is much faster than the participation rates of men in higher education at the global level. It has increased from 19% to 43% among women, as against from 19% to 37% among men. This is, I'm quoting from the global data report of the UNESCO. In our country also, if you look at the gross enrollment ratio of girls in higher education, that is higher than that of boys, though marginally 28.5% as against 28.4%. But there are states where you find wide variations. Girls have outpaced boys in the state of Tamil Nadu in a big number. Girls have outpaced boys in the state of Punjab by 6 percentage points. But when we look at the participation rates of girls in STEM disciplines, we find that Professor Ghosh has not done enough while working in Jadavpur University, and which is why the participation rates of the girls in STEM disciplines is 12 percentage point lesser than that of boys in our country. And sir, this is not the only problem. The other problem is that if we look at the participation rates of our girls in premier institutions like IITs and IIMs and ISERs and central universities, their participation rates are abysmally poorer than that of boys in those institutions. And therefore, we have double challenge. While on the one hand, we have to increase the participation rates of girls in STEM disciplines, we must also ensure that they are also visible on the campuses of IITs and IIMs and ISERs and central universities. And in Jadavpur, for instance, Jadavpur is in no way lesser than any central university insofar as excellence is concerned, which is why Jadavpur was identified in the first phase by the University Grants Commission as a university with potential for excellence. And how can it be done, sir? It cannot be done merely by higher educational institutions. It requires appropriate interventions right from the school stage. Bureaucracy is not going to realize that. We'll have to do that. And in order to take up that responsibility as a university or as a college, what we need to do is that we need to organize orientation programs for the school-going girls of grade 9, 10, 11 and 12. Of course, you will be, surprised to know, may not be surprised, this is the problem in the US also. And in US, I am associated with one of the universities which is organizing special orientation programs for the school-going children during the weekend. They are motivating them, they are directing them, they are inspiring them. And therefore, I do not know whether any university of ours is organizing or doing such kind of program for the school-going children. You are doing it? Very good. Excellent. I think more and more universities should come forward and do it because the interventions would be required. Some kind of interventions would be essentially required at the higher educational institutions so that we can come up with gender-free and gender-free kinds of assessment and all those things and organize the remedial programs for the girls. But at the same time, what needs to be done is at the school level. The third, and this can be done. So the third important issue that I would like to flag is about inclusivity in education. If you look at the World Health Organization data, it tells us that there are 1.3 billion people in the world with some kind of physical disability. Some kind of physical disability. And I was comparing the bachelor's degree holders with physical disability of the United States of America, Great Britain and ourselves. And I found out that while in the US, 27% children with physical disabilities are bachelor's degree holder and 22% are bachelor's degree holder with physical disabilities in UK, we have only 6% boys and 3% girls who are the bachelor's degree holder with some kind of physical disability. And we do not find very many deaf and dumb in that category. They have physical disability of not very high order. Professor Ghosh will be knowing it much better than me. You go to the labs of the leading universities of the world, the kind of improvisation that they do in their apprentices, in their instruments, depending upon the physical disability of the learner, is remarkable actually. We have not done enough, and we need to do, because they also have a right to live and to get benefited from education. This is another challenge. And this requires greater attention of the provincial government and the federal government to provide resources to the institutions so that they can do the needful. The fourth aspect that I would like to highlight today is about the skilling gaps. The fourth industrial revolution, impelled by artificial intelligence and emerging technologies, have created humongous gaps across all kinds of industries. All kinds of industries. And it has also created two classes of students: traditional students in the age cohort of 18 to 24 or 23, and non-traditional students like you and I. We have entered into the world of work, but today we find ourselves highly inadequate when it comes to handling of the digital to realize the cherished goal of the National Education Policy 2020. The another important thing that I would like to highlight is about interdisciplinary teaching and research. Everyone now knows that, we had started talking about it a long time ago. Professor Yashpal Committee on Renovation and Rejuvenation of Higher Education has categorically highlighted the significance of interdisciplinary teaching and learning when they said that we need to dissolve the boundaries between the disciplines and we need to switch over from the conventional model of teaching and learning to thematic approach of teaching and learning, to switch over to project-based teaching and learning, to resort to team teaching, but we are still continuing with the same thing. When I was taught periodic table in chemistry in 1967, I was taught periodic table as a chart. That these are the elements, these are their atomic numbers, these are their atomic weights, and this is how they are placed in the periodic table. When I grew old, and when I started seeing the doctors, and doctors started telling me that your magnesium level is going down and that potassium level is also going down and that your hemoglobin is very low, then I realized that my teacher never ever taught me about the significance of those elements. He never related his teaching with what kind of impact would it have on our life. When I was taught photosynthesis, I taught photosynthesis only as a biological process. My teacher did not tell me that there is a quantum physics involved in it, that there is a geography involved in it, when you see at the acceleration rate of the photosynthesis in tropical region and in coastal region. My teacher never ever told me that there is language involved in it. There is history also involved in it. There is an art also involved in it. And when you look at you Google and you find out the Nobel Prize winners of the last 2 decades, majority of them are those who have defined the basic boundaries of a particular discipline. This is a great challenge for us. This can be done only by the teachers. This cannot be done by others. And if democracy and the political executive, they need to understand, and good sense must prevail upon them. They need to realize that when education is micromanaged by those without classroom experiences, the education loses its value. It should never have value. It compromises the autonomy of the teacher. And therefore, I would like to leave this message to you that you are a university, because she doesn't belong to our tribe. I mean, she was doing her job as a specialist, as an anchor. So let me also talk related to this aspect, another important aspect about research. Universities have the dual responsibilities. By one hand, they have the responsibilities of creating educated and skilled workforce, but they also have to create new knowledge. Most of the institutions all over the world are not able to strike a balance between the both. If you look at the research-intensive universities at the global level, majority of the research-intensive universities are the public universities, because it requires enormous amount of investment on a prolonged basis. It doesn't come from private initiative. There are very few universities like Stanford or Harvard, for that matter. Now, Harvard was also a public university until 1865. It became a private university when it started sinking, actually, during that time, and when it was taken over by the alumni of the Harvard, actually. They said that it is a question of our credibility and we can't afford to let it happen. So they took over the management, and now 95% representation in the board of management is from the alumni in Harvard. So the point that I am trying to make is that the research-intensive universities, by and large, are the state, but are from the public universities, not from the private universities. Private universities are very few. But what is happening with us? We want to become the leaders. How can you become a leader without making appropriate investment in promotion of research? I will share some data with you from the Global Data Report. It shows that China has outpaced United